Not welcome here." The words clung to the air like smoke as the Grand Meridian's manager stared down at Marianne. Her simple grey sweatshirt and baseball cap stood out like a bruise against the hotel's polished opulence. She had spent her day serving others, only to be treated like an intruder. Yet, when Franklin Lawrence stepped through those grand doors moments later, the manager's smug expression collapsed into horror. It was a mistake he would regret for the rest of his career. The afternoon sun bathed the ornate iron gates of the Grand Meridian in gold. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above a lobby where polished marble floors mirrored designer heels and tailored suits. Laughter and clinking glasses floated beneath vaulted ceilings. Marianne Lawrence tugged her baseball cap higher, brushing a stubborn strand of blonde hair from her forehead. At 43, she carried herself with quiet dignity, her worn jeans and scuffed sneakers whispering a different story than the glitz around her. Her calloused hands adjusted the strap of her canvas-tote hands, still aching from a full day of work. She had spent hours at the community center, organizing food drives, preparing meals for families who had little. It was rewarding, but it left no time to change before meeting Franklin. The moment Marianne crossed the threshold, the contrast struck her: immaculate uniforms, expensive perfumes, and the disapproving glances of guests who barely tried to hide it. Heads turned, eyebrows lifted. "The Grand Meridian welcomes you," proclaimed a gilded sign, but the stairs told another story. A receptionist caught her eye, then quickly looked away, whispering behind a manicured hand. Nearby, a security guard subtly shifted his stance, his gaze sharpening. Marianne straightened her back and made her way to the concierge desk. "I'm here to meet my husband," she said, her voice calm. "He's arriving for the social reform conference." The concierge's professional smile froze. Her eyes flickered over Marianne's baseball cap and casual clothes. "And your husband's name would be?" she asked, saccharine sweet. Before Marianne could answer, a sharp voice sliced through the lobby's polished hum. "Excuse me?" The words were polite, but the tone dripped disdain. She turned to see a man in his late 40s, his silver-streaked hair sculpted immaculately, his bespoke navy suit tailored to perfection. The name tag on his chest gleamed: Elliot Winchester, hotel manager. "May I help you?" he said, his smile tight, his eyes coldly appraising. "I'm just waiting for my husband," Marianne replied. "He should be arriving shortly." "I see," Elliot interrupted smoothly, deliberately. "And does your husband have a reservation with us?" The subtle condescension in his voice stung. Marianne kept her tone even. "Yes," she said simply. "He does." Elliot's smile thinned. "Perhaps I could suggest a more appropriate place for you to wait," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the door. "I'm perfectly comfortable here, thank you," Marianne answered, her voice steady despite the heat creeping up her neck. The manager's posture stiffened. His eyes darted across the lobby, noting the pristine guests and the priceless decor. "Ma'am," he said, voice lowering to a tight whisper, "the Grand Meridian has standards we must maintain. We're hosting distinguished guests today. Perhaps you don't realize the nature of our establishment." Marianne's expression didn't change. "I'm well aware," she said coolly. Nearby, a well-dressed couple paused, pretending not to eavesdrop. "Then you'll understand why I must insist," Elliot said, nodding toward the exit, his smile now entirely gone. "There's a lovely cafe across the street," he added, his meaning unmistakable. Staff hovered awkwardly. An older woman with kind eyes looked at Marianne with dawning recognition. A young man focused on his shoes, wishing himself invisible. "I'm staying right here," Marianne said firmly. "My husband specifically asked me to meet him in the lobby." Elliot's patience thinned visibly. "Look, I don't know what you're trying to pull," he hissed, "but this isn't going to work. We have security protocols, especially today." "I'm not pulling anything," Marianne said, her voice clipped but calm. "Nevertheless, I must insist," Elliot said louder, his voice slicing through the ambient noise. "Either provide proof you're a guest or leave." Conversations stilled, heads turned, staff exchanged anxious glances. The older female employee stepped forward again only to freeze when Elliot shot her a glare. "Mr. Winchester," Marianne began, still measured. "No, I don't think you understand," Elliot snapped, gesturing pointedly at her casual clothes. "This is the Grand Meridian. We maintain certain standards. Marianne felt her cheeks flush, not from shame, but slow-burning anger. Are you seriously judging me based on my clothes? I'm enforcing our policies, Elliot said coldly. This isn't a public shelter. He adjusted his already perfect tie. I've asked nicely, please leave before I'm forced to call security. The older woman opened her mouth again, but Elliot cut her off without looking. Mrs. Davis, return to your post. Marianne remained standing, feeling every judgmental eye upon her. She could end this, easily reveal who she was. But something stubborn rose inside her. She would not give him that satisfaction. Fine, Elliot muttered, reaching for his radio. Security to the main lobby, please. The security guard approached, looking almost apologetic. Elliot pointed sharply at Marianne. Please escort this person off the premises. Sir, are you sure? The guard hesitated. No, Elliot barked. Marianne held Elliot's gaze without flinching. You're making a mistake, she said. Elliot offered a thin, triumphant smile. The mistake was yours, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. Thinking you could just walk in here like you belong. The guard stepped closer, shifting uncomfortably. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. This is ridiculous, Marianne said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I have every right to be here. Elliot leaned in, his words a harsh whisper. Looking for a wealthy patron? Trying to sneak into our event? It won't work. Marianne's indignation sharpened. My angle? I told you I'm waiting for my husband. Elliot gave a sharp laugh. Right, and I suppose your husband is one of our distinguished guests for the Global Reform Initiative. Actually, Marianne said, lifting her chin, yes, he is. Elliot chuckled dismissively and turned to the guard with an exaggerated eye roll. Of course he is. Guests openly watched now, some whispered. A few pulled out their phones. The older employee, Mrs. Davis, tried once more. Mr. Winchester, perhaps we should. Margaret, Elliot snapped, return to your post. The guard shifted awkwardly. Sir, maybe we should verify. There's nothing to verify, Elliot said sharply. The situation is clear. He turned back to Marianne, voice taut with frustration. This is your final warning. Leave quietly or be escorted out. The camera flash went off from the crowd. Marianne's face flushed not with shame, but determination. I'm not leaving, she said, voice steady, until my husband arrives. Fine. Have it your way, Elliot sneered. He nodded to the guard. Remove her. The guard hesitated before reaching toward her arm. Don't touch me, Marianne said quietly, stepping back. I'll walk myself out. Shoulders squared, dignity intact, she turned toward the door. But just as she took the first step, the grand glass doors of the Grand Meridian swung open. The entire lobby fell into stunned silence. And standing there backlit by the afternoon sun was Franklin Lawrence. Franklin's question hung in the air, deceptively calm. Mrs. Davis, the older employee who had tried to intervene earlier, stepped forward. Sir, I tried to tell Mr. Winchester that Mrs. Lawrence was a valued guest, she said clearly, but he wouldn't listen. Elliot shot her a venomous glare, which she pointedly ignored. By now, a small crowd had gathered, lingering at a respectful distance. Whispers rippled through the lobby as guests and staff recognized not just Franklin Lawrence, but also Marianne, renowned for her charitable work and public advocacy alongside her husband. Tell me exactly what happened, Franklin said, his gaze sharp, scanning from Marianne to Elliot to the surrounding staff. Mrs. Davis spoke again, her voice steady. Mr. Winchester insisted that Mrs. Lawrence leave because of her attire. He implied she didn't belong here and threatened to have security remove her. Elliot's face turned crimson. That's not exactly I was merely enforcing our standards, he sputtered. Standards? Franklin repeated, his eyebrow arching. And what standards would those be, Mr. Winchester? We have an image to maintain, Elliot said, though the earlier authority had drained from his voice. Especially with today's event. How was I to know this woman was your wife? This woman, Franklin said slowly, his voice tightening, is Marianne Lawrence, but more importantly, She is a person deserving of basic respect, no matter who she's married to or what she's wearing. The general manager nodded quickly, his face tight with forced professionalism. Absolutely, Mr. Lawrence. The Grand Meridian values all our guests equally. He turned a sharp look on Elliot. Mr. Winchester and I will be having a lengthy discussion about our customer service standards. Franklin's focus returned to Marianne. Are you all right? He asked, gently. She nodded, squeezing his hand. I'm fine, just ready to go upstairs and change before dinner. Of course, Franklin said. He turned to the general manager. I trust our suite is ready? Yes, absolutely, sir, the general manager said, gesturing toward the elevators. Please allow me to escort you personally. As they moved away, Elliot Winchester remained frozen, watching his career unravel before his eyes. The presidential suite occupied the entire top floor of the Grand Meridian, offering sweeping views through floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside, Marianne sat quietly on a plush sofa, still in her casual clothes, while Franklin loosened his tie. You should have called me, he said, worry edging his voice. Marianne smiled wryly. And say what? Your wife is being thrown out of the hotel for looking too ordinary? Exactly that, he said. Franklin sat beside her, taking her hand. This isn't the first time something like this has happened, he said. And it won't be the last, she replied softly. People see what they expect to see. A knock interrupted them. Franklin opened the door to find the hotel's general manager, Marcus Bennett, looking deeply apologetic. Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence, he said, I cannot express how sorry we are for what happened. This does not represent the Grand Meridian's values. Yet it happened, Franklin pointed out coolly. Yes, sir, Marcus said, swallowing hard. We're addressing it. Mr. Winchester has been suspended pending a full review. Marianne stood. Is that really necessary? She asked. Both men looked surprised. A mistake born from prejudice, Franklin said darkly. Yes, Marianne agreed, but firing him won't change that. It just moves it somewhere else. Marcus cleared his throat. Mrs. Lawrence, what he did was inexcusable. I'm not excusing it, Marianne said. But maybe there's a better way to handle it. Meanwhile, 5 floors below, Elliot Winchester sat in a small office, his head in his hands, 20 years of work gone in 15 minutes. A soft knock made him look up. Mrs. Davis stood in the doorway. Come to gloat? Elliot asked bitterly. No, she said. She stepped inside, shutting the door. I came to tell you you still have a chance to make this right. Elliot gave a hollow laugh. Right? I insulted Franklin Lawrence's wife. I'm finished. Maybe you are, she said sharply. Or maybe you're not. Depends on what you do next. He glared at her. How was I supposed to know who she was? Mrs. Davis stared him down. You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with dignity. Back in the presidential suite, Marianne fastened a simple pearl necklace around her neck, now dressed in an elegant black gown. Franklin watched her in admiration. You're too forgiving, he said. It's not about forgiveness, she answered, meeting his gaze in the mirror. It's about making a difference. And what do you suggest? He asked. She smiled. I have an idea. The Grand Meridian's ballroom glowed with chandeliers as the charity gala filled the air with laughter and clinking glasses. At the head table, Franklin and Marianne greeted guests. Near the service entrance, Elliot Winchester stood stiffly, called unexpectedly to the ballroom. Mrs. Davis appeared at his side. They're ready for you, she said. Who is? He asked, dread in his voice. The Lawrences, she said simply. Elliot's heart pounded as he approached the head table. Conversations quieted. Curious glances followed him. Franklin Lawrence rose to greet him. Mr. Winchester, he said, my wife has a proposition for you. Marianne smiled warmly but firmly. Mr. Winchester, I understand you've been suspended, she said. Elliot swallowed. Yes, ma'am. How would you feel about taking on a special assignment instead? She asked. The community center where Marianne volunteered was a world away from the Grand Meridian's marble and gold. 1 week later, Elliot Winchester stood in the center's modest kitchen, sleeves rolled up, apron tied tight, sweating over rows of food containers. Across the kitchen, Marianne worked with quiet efficiency. She glanced up, watching him. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Fine," he said stiffly, "though the kitchen could use better organization." Marianne smiled. "Always the manager," she teased. Elliot flushed. "I didn't mean. I'm grateful for the opportunity, Mrs. Lawrence." "Marianne," she corrected gently. "And this isn't charity, Elliot. You're earning your second chance." The deal had been simple. Instead of being fired, Elliot would volunteer a month at the community center and oversee a major charity fundraiser at the hotel to benefit it. "May I ask you something?" he ventured. "Of course. Why did you do this?" "After how I treated you, most people would have demanded I be fired." Marianne considered her answer carefully. "What would that have changed? You'd lose a job. But would you have learned anything?" Elliot had no answer. "I've spent my life trying to bridge divides," she said. "Sometimes the only way to change hearts is through experience." Outside the kitchen, the center's director rushed over. "Marianne, we have 15 more families than expected today." "We'll make it work," Marianne said easily. She turned to Elliot. "Can you help us rethink the distribution plan?" For the first time, Elliot smiled genuinely. "I have some ideas," he said. By late afternoon, they had served over 200 families. Standing by the door, Elliot made notes on his phone. "What are you writing?" Marianne asked. "Ideas for the fundraiser," he said. "Trying to get the hotel's regulars invested in the center's mission." Marianne studied him thoughtfully. "You're quite good at this when you're not busy judging people," she teased. Elliot flushed, but smiled. "I deserve that." "No," she said. "What you deserve is the chance to do better. We all do." 1 month later, the Grand Meridian's ballroom was transformed for the community center fundraiser. Elliot Winchester, fully reinstated, personally greeted every guest, wealthy donors and struggling volunteers alike, treating each one with equal dignity. As Franklin Lawrence took the stage to deliver his speech, he gestured toward his wife, who stood proudly beside him. The true measure of our society isn't how we treat those we admire or fear, but how we treat those we believe can do nothing for us. Across the room, Elliot caught Marianne's eye and gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson he had learned. Sometimes, the most profound changes begin with nothing more than a simple shift in perspective. If this story touched you, remember, true character isn't shown in how we treat the powerful, it's revealed in how we treat everyone else. Share where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Stunning Story for more powerful tales that remind us what truly matters.